the fear of being wrong, the fear of being different, and the fear of being not enough. These are the silent thieves of action, and today we're going to uproot them. Welcome to the Living Inside Out podcast. I'm your host, Tokes Aruture, entrepreneur with 20 years of experience, founder of The Baby Cut Shop, a luxury nursery furniture brand and design studio in Chelsea, London. I also founded The Revealery, an invitation-only exclusive furniture company. I'm a TEDx speaker and a mindset coach. This podcast is about embracing mindset shifts through life, business, and faith. Each week, we dive beneath the surface to uncover and challenge the limiting beliefs that hold us back, exploring how to live from the inside out. I believe God has equipped us with the resources to live the life we truly desire. So, if you're ready to use your natural gifts and step into your best self, let's get started. Hey, how are you doing? I hope your day is off to a great start if you're listening in the morning or if it's at night, halfway through the day. I really hope that it's been great so far. So I want to say thank you for listening, for tuning in, and especially to my new listeners, because I don't take it for granted that you would take time out of your day to hit play on the Living Inside Out podcast. I'd love to know how you got to hear about this, because I'm aware that we have a whole lot of new listeners, and I'm really curious to find out how you got to know about the podcast and, of course, what you think about it. And if at the end of today's episode you think to yourself, this is really good and I want more of this, can you do me a favor? Please hit the subscribe button, but also give me a 5-star rating. And finally, please share it with one or two people that you think can handle this. Those were the words someone used to describe last week's podcast. It's not for everyone. Not everyone can handle it. And you know what? I agree. So following episode 108, where I talked about Kairos and the importance of acting in the perfect time or the opportune time, it made sense for me to talk about what happens when you know that this is the right time to do something. And of course, the next thing is action. But then we all struggle. Sometimes we struggle to take action, or we struggle to take action at the right time. So I felt that the natural progression going on from last week is to talk about what holds us back from taking action. If you haven't listened to the previous episode, here's a recap. It centered on the difference between Chronos and Kairos, both of which mean time in ancient Greek language. But Chronos is simply the passing or the marking of time, which is measured by seasons and years or months or minutes, whereas Kairos is the opportune time, and it is the intersection between an action and the time in which the action is carried out, so that a very specific outcome is reached. In other words, if you take the same action at a different time, you will get a different result. And the difference may not be obvious. You may not even see it immediately, but your timing may change the trajectory of your life or someone else's life, because its effect is in the future. The present isn't necessarily affected, but the future will be. So now that you recognize the power in Kairos, which is doing things in their pre-appointed time, let's move on to taking action. So I'm going to share 3 little foxes that have hindered me, and I've picked up from other people as well. And I hope that as you listen, you will be inspired to dig even deeper, to find what it is that's holding you back from taking action. Because isn't it frustrating when you know what to do, but you don't? Well, I know that it frustrates me. So the teaching on Kairos applies when we are talking about manifesting spiritual realities. And a spiritual reality is an invisible truth, which means that there may not be physical evidence that it is true or that it is real. It follows then that the timeline and the process for taking action may not make sense physically. So keep that in mind. The first little fox is the fear of being wrong. It's interesting the way we live such polarized views as either being wrong or right. Most of us live somewhere in the middle, but we always want to be right, or we do not want to be wrong. Whatever wrong looks like, we definitely don't want to be wrong. But I want to challenge you to see things a little bit differently. Question: what does wrong mean to you? Does it mean failure? It didn't work? You didn't make money from it? What exactly does wrong mean? Does your definition of wrong or failure come from a man-made standard? Or is it something that comes from somewhere deeper, like your gut or your spirit? Because the Bible says God works all things, not good things, but all things for the good of those who love him. So if it is working out for your good, can you still call it wrong? Painful? Probably. Regrettable? Yep. But wrong? I don't know. I believe there is only one truth, of a truth that is unshakable, and that is found in Christ, or that is Christ. Christ is the truth, right? But the concept of wrong, I think we have it wrong. No pun intended. And here's why I say that. What we call wrong is a lot of times based on the standard of man or the opinions of people or societal expectations. It's wrong to do XYZ, not because it's sinful, not because God said it was wrong, but perhaps because society frowns on it, or people have, their own opinions on things that are wrong versus right. For example, I joke a lot about this, right? That in my country, Nigeria, the S word is not a swear word, because in Pidgin English, it means what it says. And it's a very normal, healthy word, okay? In the West, however, it's considered a dirty word or a swear word, and it's not acceptable. Are you then going to say the S word is a bad word? I don't think it is. Now, I don't want to say the whole word, which I would happily have said, because if I do, this episode is going to be marked with an E and it's going to reduce the reach. Podcast gods are going to reduce the reach of it because it's going to be marked. But what is wrong here in the West is not necessarily wrong in other parts of the world, which means that in this regard, there is a standard for what's wrong versus what's right. It follows then that what is failure to you might be success to someone else. So I'm currently writing my first book, and I'm reliving the experience of losing everything and starting from scratch. And it has brought up a whole boatload of emotions from deep within, emotions I thought were buried, emotions I didn't even know had not yet been expressed. And that was a very interesting one. But it has also led me to a place of gratitude, because some of the things I complain about today are the very things I once prayed desperately for back then. I want to challenge you to revisit your definition of success and failure and get excited for where you stand today, because our experiences are ours alone and should not be carried out against the backdrop of other people's opinions. If you're wrong, i.e., the outcome you have is different from what you wanted, don't say you're wrong. Don't call it failure. Call it a lesson. And then learn from it and try again. Thomas Edison, imagine if he decided to give up after being wrong 1,000 times. We wouldn't know his name. I don't think we'll be in darkness because I believe somebody else will simply have invented the light bulb, probably in a different manner from what he did. But in reality, there is no failure. There are only lessons. And we have been socialized to call things either right or wrong when we all live in the middle. So be mindful of the definitions and the information that your flesh interprets to you, because what it calls reality is based entirely on what it wants to feel in the moment. Think about the times that someone said something that offended you, but then in a different moment, the same words made you smile or you were able to ignore it. Your flesh will not hesitate to name a form of discomfort failure. And yet discomfort is what we feel and what we experience during growing season. And it occurs as we're being ushered out of our comfort zone. Your spirit is superior to your body, and it is the part of you that speaks truth, because that is also the part of you that's connected to God, and that is who you should listen to. The second fear we have is the fear of being different. There are certain elements that confirm our uniqueness and therefore the individuality of our path. Your fingerprints, no one in the world has yours. Your dentition, no one's got it. Even your handwriting, they have handwriting analysts or analyzers who are able to say, this is this person's handwriting, no matter how similar it looks to the naked eye. There are high-tech gadgets that can tell you something's different about it. No two people have exactly the same handwriting. I think that's mind-blowing. Now, if your physical body carries such distinct marks, does it not follow then that your mind and your spirit and your path are also different? There's a saying I hear often, which is there's safety in numbers. But I beg to differ. It's not that it's safer. It's just that there is the feeling of safety in numbers. When you have a lot of people doing the same things, you feel safe. You use it to judge whether or not you are moving in the right direction. I was saying to my son this morning we were talking about herd mentality, and I said how I had commented on a post, some post, someone's, one of those posts anyway, had to do with mindset. And I noticed, I kept getting notification and I say so many people were liking the post. Now, I'm not saying that the comment was not worth liking, but I'm inclined to believe that I'm getting so many likes because people are seeing that it has been liked and then they're liking it. And you know how I know that? Because I do the same too. There is this fear of missing out, like you just kind of want to belong to the people who found something inspiring. So you hit the like button because 60 or 100 people have already liked it. I'm not saying that you don't think it is inspiring or funny or whatever it is. You do, but a lot of times we feel that way, but not enough to like it. But then we see that lots of people have it, like, oh yeah, I'm going to like it too. It's a bit like the celebrity culture where people somehow celebrate celebrities who may have exactly the same or worse qualities than the average person, but the average person isn't celebrated. And that's because where the crowd goes, we want to follow. So when I look back and I see how over the years I tried so hard to chisel the parts of me that stood out, I almost feel sad for that young lady because I really wanted to be like others. I recall in secondary school, one of my friends, Toyi, she wore her watch on her right wrist when traditionally it's worn on the left. And guess what I started doing? Wearing my watch on my right. And there was a cousin of mine, there is a cousin of mine, I need to ask her if she still does this, but she never used to sleep with a pillow. And I thought it was so fascinating. Like I'd never heard of that before. And when I think back, I was quite young at the time. I was maybe 12, 13, I think. And I think back and realized how I loved people being different and I admired them. And when I was young, I wasn't afraid to be different. But as I got older, and as they say, life showed me, cleared my eyes, I began to find safety in numbers. But now I'm in a very different place. Thank you very much. And I celebrate my difference, and so should you. Question: do you recall a time when you felt different? Like you're not supposed to be like others? Well, I urge you to go back to that moment and recapture it and don't let it go. Just last night, I was chatting with my friend Titi and asked her if she ever felt different as a child, and she said yes. And it's the same with me, and I bet it's the same with you. If you grew up being mocked for being different, or perhaps you were celebrated for being like others, listen, formal education has done a number on us, okay? But that's a conversation for another time. But you may struggle to embrace your unique ideas if growing up you were celebrated for being like others, or again, like I said, mocked or ridiculed for being different. Now, whether you agree or not, whether you embrace your uniqueness or not, I have news for you. You are not like anyone else. So accept it. And once you can accept this as fact, it becomes a lot easier to embrace and not reject your ideas as weird. It's hard to have extraordinary ideas if you see yourself as ordinary. There's going to be a dissonance there, and you would reject those ideas instantly. So please start by embracing your uniqueness. Recognize that you really are not like anybody else, that you are extraordinary. And it doesn't matter if the difference in you was mocked or laughed at when you were younger, or even as an adult. Embrace your uniqueness. No one else in the world is like you. You are an unrepeatable miracle. Like God did not make two versions of you, and you cannot even clone yourself. You can't even copy yourself accurately if you wanted to. When ChatGPT first came out, we were all so excited at its capabilities. And honestly, guys, till this day, there is no day that I don't ask the question or say the phrase, ChatGPT, you be winch. Translation, you're a witch. Okay. That's how we say it in Benin, which is where I grew up. Being able to write articles at what seems like the speed of light, being able to answer questions. And I mean, some of the things it does for me, I remember one time, I may have shared this a few weeks ago, I was writing an email to a client who just was being incredibly difficult and unreasonable. And I just had enough. And so I popped this email in ChatGPT with the intention of getting it to correct my grammar and tidy it up and format it well and everything. And he came back and said, this email is not suitable for a prestigious company like the Baby Cut Shop. I will refine it. And I'm like, no, I intended to be rude and angry. But that's the thing is, I'm excited about AI. I love it. I use it and so on. But you can probably now tell when an article or a post was AI generated. If you've been using it for any length of time, you might have learned to pick up the little cues, the little punctuation marks that it prefers, the style in which it writes, and so on. And yes, the prompts do matter, and you can give it more complex prompts for more specific and unique results. But there is a way in which it writes as it strips away the tone of your voice. Like I said, I'm a heavy user and I enjoy the benefits of it, but I don't want it to permanently erase our uniqueness. The way you speak and write is unique to you. The way you arrange your words and the length of each sentence is you. And there's a reason why certain programs can tell if something is AI generated. And that's a good thing, because it means that we have something that the machines can never replicate, because there are no two versions of you. Now, by all means, please use it. Anyone who's not using AI is slowly being left behind. Seriously. Like now it's become as relevant to our day-to-day life as the internet is, pretty much. So I'm not discouraging its use, but I'm just saying that in the use of it, remember to hold on to your personality and your style of communication, because that too is you. The third little fox is the fear of not enoughness. Recently, I arrived on a new realization while I was journaling. I'd asked God what was holding me back, and He began to expose some of the hidden reasons. And if you're familiar with my journey, you'd know that I'm a businesswoman and I've enjoyed a fair bit of press and recognition. But then there are some actions that I should have taken by now that I kept holding back from. And when I dug deep into my mind, it turned out that I didn't think I was enough. And because I didn't think I was enough, much of my activities that should have gone towards taking action was spent arranging myself so that I could get the accolades and recognition to qualify me to do the thing that I'm already called and equipped to do. But if I didn't stop to ask and then listen to what God had to say, I wouldn't have known this. I would have continued. And the world would continue to say, hey, she's a successful businesswoman. But deep down, I know that there are things that I should have accomplished by now that I haven't. And that's because my time and energy and effort was going towards making me feel like I was enough and worthy of the level of success I know will come with taking action. A couple of years ago, I hired the services of an electrician who ended up scamming me. And as I said earlier, there is no failure, there are just lessons. So when the scamming was completed, for lack of a better word, because it happened over a period of days, I searched for the lesson in the failure. And here's a tip. The most powerful word in self-development is why. Ask yourself why until you get to the root of the reason. So I asked why. Why did he scam me? What was in me that attracted this man? What was in me that engaged with a scammer? And I realized that it was a sense of not enoughness, and here's why I think so, or why I believe so. I work with some of the most amazing residential properties in the world. My clients have homes that are just top notch, for lack of a better description. And when it comes to hiring tradesmen to work on their properties, I vet, I check, I get referrals, I get everything. I make sure they are kosher. I know how to do that for my clients, so why did I not think I was worthy of such care and attention? The fear of not enoughness will shortchange you. It will lead you to hold back on your ideas, and you will avoid opportunities and connections because you'd think that you need to be embellished or improved or better qualified to take action or to engage with certain people. The fear of not enoughness is one of the worst because you are looking for a feeling that validates you, and your emotions are never going to do that. You've got to go beyond your soul, which is where your emotions sit, and get into your spirit, which is the core of who you are, the person that you were created, the one that's connected to God. That's where your identity has to come from. Emotions make bad leaders. They're very powerful, but they're also transient. They're constantly changing. So if you're trying to rely on your emotion to tell you who you are or what you're capable of, one day you're going to get a yes, go ahead, you can do this. And the very next day you're going to be like, who do you think you are? You're not capable. I want you to know that your idea comes with everything it needs to become manifested in its physical form, and you do not need to embellish it. You don't need to find reasons to validate it either. You have everything. Nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. I want to end by saying that although this year has shown me pepe, as we say in Nigeria, i.e., it was incredibly tough, it has also been the most beautiful year for me because the trials stripped away the layers, released my courage, and gave me clarity on why I'm here. And let's not forget Kairos. And so because of all of that, I'm on a roll, and I want that for you too. Are we connected on social media? If not, why don't you connect with me? Let's hang out. I'm curious to know what your plans are for the rest of 2024. At the time of this recording, we have about 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks to the end of the year. And I'm so excited. I'm thankful that we have come this far. The fact that you're listening means you're alive. You made it this far. And I am just so thankful. I want to thank you also for listening, especially if you've been listening for any length of time at all, or even if this is your first episode. Thank you so very much. Thanks for sharing it. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you for the love. Let's connect on social media at Talks Arotire everywhere. You can also connect with me on my website, talksarotire.com. And I look forward to hearing your opinions on this. Don't forget to give this a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. And please share it with your nearest and dearest. Till next time, live from the inside out.